Okay, good evening, everyone. Ways and Means, I will go ahead and call this meeting to order. Typical housekeeping, please silence anything that makes noises. Due to the pandemic, the legislative building is still closed at this time. People can provide testimony or attend the meeting virtually and must pre-register online. And on our agenda, it gives all the instructions. So with that, committee members, I'll go ahead and have staff please call the roll.
Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson.
Here.
Assemblyman Frierson. Assemblywoman Gorlow.
Here.
Assemblyman Hafen.
Here.
Assemblywoman Howdigi.
Here.
Assemblyman Levitt.
Here.
Assemblywoman Miller.
Here.
Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno.
Here.
Assemblywoman Peters.
Here.
Assemblyman Roberts.
Here.
Assemblywoman Titus.
Here.
Assemblywoman Tolles.
Here.
Assemblyman Watts.
Here.
Chair Carlton.
And I am here. Thank you very much. So committee members, we have 5 bills before this evening and a bill draft introduction. I'll go ahead and start with the bill draft introduction, and that way we can get it down for tomorrow in order to get it back to the committee. So, and it would be the chair's intent that as we move through all this, we will be adding things on to future agendas so we can keep everything rolling, which is typical for this type of year, this time of year. So the bill draft that I have for introduction this evening is BDR S-1116, makes an appropriation to the Division of Museums and History of the Department of Tourism and Cultural Affairs to restore the school bus program to reimburse transportation costs for public school students to visit state museums. So with that, I would accept a motion to introduce from, let me turn my view on, from Ms. Benitez Thompson, and a second from Ms. Monroe Moreno. Any questions or comments on the BDR introduction? This is a program that we have funded in the past. So with that, not seeing any questions or comments, if the staff could call the roll, please.
Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson.
Yes.
Assemblyman Frierson. Assemblywoman Gorlow.
Yes.
Assemblyman Hafen.
Yes.
Assemblywoman Howdigi.
Yes.
Assemblyman Levitt.
Yes.
Assemblywoman Miller.
Yes.
Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno.
Yes.
Assemblywoman Peters.
Yes.
Assemblyman Roberts.
Yes.
Assemblywoman Titus.
Yes.
Assemblywoman Tolles.
Yes.
Assemblyman Watts.
Yes.
Chair Carlton.
Yes. Motion passes unanimously of those members present. I will sign the bill draft documents and get them submitted to the front desk for the appropriate referral. So with that, committee members, we have bills before us this evening. This is new to us, so I'll kind of go over the ground rules a little bit. These are all appropriations bills, so we're not going to get into policy, but if you need to understand exactly what's going on, that's perfectly appropriate. We will go through the bills in order on the agenda this evening. We will not be moving any of these. We have to wait to do that until a later time. But by hearing them now, it makes it easier to move them when that time does come. So this is our stacking process. Then we rack them all up and then we basically throw them over the fence to the Senate when that time comes. So if we could go, we'll go ahead and open up the hearing on the first bill this evening, which is Assembly Bill 453. And if we could queue up the, and I'm sorry, I do not have a list of those folks testifying. I apologize. So if I could, Ms. Kaufman, do you know the person that we have for today testifying on Assembly Bill 453?
I believe Ms. Hagan is here to testify from the Treasurer's Office.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kaufman. So Ms. Hagan?
Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. For the record, I'm Tara Hagan, the Chief Deputy of the State Treasurer's Office, and it's a pleasure to be here this afternoon to present Assembly Bill 453. In accordance with NRS 617.1675, the State Treasurer is responsible for administering the Scoliosis and Disabled Pension Fund. The fund provides scoliosis and disabled pension fund benefits for diagnosed employees, their dependents, widows, widowers, surviving children, or surviving parents pursuant to statute. Scoliosis is a form of occupational lung disease caused by the inhalation of crystalline silica dust and is marked by inflammation and scarring in the form of lesions in the lungs. The monies in the account can only be used to pay benefits for the beneficiaries, and neither the Treasurer's Office nor the insurance company responsible for administering the payments is eligible to receive fees from the fund. The fund has required a series of general fund one-shot appropriations since monies were swept in the 25th 2008 special session to increase general fund reserves. The last legislatively approved one-shot appropriation was passed in 2017. The legislative session, which was Assembly Bill 502, with an $80,000 one-shot appropriation. The Treasurer's Office also requested an approval of a work program in October in 2020 in the Interim Finance Committee for funds totaling $16,949 to continue the payments through fiscal year 21. We estimate the annual payments for this fiscal year to total approximately $19,400. Assembly Bill 453 is requesting an amount not to exceed $34,000 for the biennium to continue payments in accordance with NRS 617.168. Over the past 5 fiscal years, the annual payments have averaged $28,213 with a year-over-year decrease of approximately a little over 9%. So as of September 2020, the fund was paying approximately 23 unique beneficiaries. Thank you for the opportunity to present this bill, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Excellent job, Ms. Hagan. You answered all my questions because I was going to ask how the fund was going and how many beneficiaries we had. So you gave me all my answers before I had the opportunity to ask the question. So with that, committee members, are there any questions from any folks at this time?
Madam Chairwoman, I just had some general curiosity questions just because I think this is the first time I'm seeing this.
Okay, go ahead.
I just didn't know how many, I guess it looks like it's a pension. And so I didn't know, I guess, how many folks are in this pension. I'm imagining it's kind of like a static pool, but is it more people in one year than not? I was generally interested.
Certainly, Tara Hagan for the record. It's actually, as time goes on, we've had participants that become deceased and so no longer are eligible. So this has kind of been an inverted pyramid. So back in 1999, it was approximately 186,000 of expenditures. And now that we are down to approximately 23 unique beneficiaries, we're, around the $19,400. So it's going to continue to decline as the beneficiaries pass away.
Are there other questions from other committee members at this time?
Madam Chair, I just have this is Assemblyman Levitt.
Please go ahead.
I was it might be my own ignorance. Is it the appropriation doesn't have any remaining balance language in it? Is there never a remaining balance when we're talking about this particular appropriation? Because it was a one-shot appropriation. How does that work?
Tara Hagan for the record. So if there are funds remaining, they do balance forward to the next fiscal year. And interest is earned on the monies as well. And that just helps reduce that one-shot appropriation.
And Assemblyman Levitt, this is our portion of making sure that the fund is funded at a level that it can take care of those 23 beneficiaries. And then 2 years from now, depending upon if it's only 20 beneficiaries with interest, it may be a different amount. We just need to put in our portion to make sure that those beneficiaries are taken care of.
So just for my clarification, we don't need any remaining balance appropriation language in there to allow them to carry that money over.
Ms. Hagan, go ahead.
Tara Hagan for the record. I think generally there is, but I think on this, we defer to legislative staff.
Ms. Kaufman?
Madam Chair, that is correct. So this is a balance forward of funds. And so there may be a small piece of it from the prior year that gets balanced forward, and then this just replenishes it to the level that is needed for the upcoming biennium.
Good, Mr. Levitt?
Yep, thank you.
You're very welcome. Are there any other questions from any of the committee members at this time? Seeing none, this is a bill hearing, so therefore we will go through the appropriate support, oppose, and neutral. So with that, I believe we would need to go to broadcast services and ask them to open it up for folks who might be in support of AB 453.
Chair, the testimony line is open and working. However, we have no callers at this time.
Okay. So with that, we have no one in support. Technically, we have to go through each option, so we'll go ahead and do that. So is there anyone? There is no one in opposition on the telephone line?
Chair, that is correct. There is no one in opposition on the telephone line either.
And there is no one in neutral.
Chair, that is correct. There is no one in neutral.
Thank you very much. It just makes the record clear. Thank you very much, broadcast services. So with that, Ms. Hagan, did you have any closing comment?
I did not. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So with that, we'll go ahead and close the hearing on AB 453. And that's how Ways and Means does a bill. So the next one we have before us is AB 455. I'll go ahead and open up the hearing on AB 455. And I believe we have Ms. Byrne from the State Comptroller's Office available.
Actually, this is Lori Hoover, the Chief Deputy. I'll be doing the testimony.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hoover, for being here this evening. So with that, if you would please proceed.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Carlton and members of the Assembly Committee on Ways and Means. For the record, I am Lori Hoover, the Chief Deputy at the Controller's Office. Thank you for allowing us to testify on AB 455, which makes an appropriation to the Office of the State Controller for the replacement of printers. The Controller's Office is requesting funding for 2 MICR secure printers to replace the 2 aging MICR secure printers currently in use, which are working beyond their useful lives. Per NRS 227.170, the Controller's Office prints the state's accounts payables. In addition, payroll checks and the Division of Welfare Support Services child support checks are also printed by the Controller's Office. Between 6,000 and 8,000 checks are printed monthly. The current printers are over 9 years old. While the Controller's Office makes every attempt to follow NRS 227.185, which requires all accounts payable to be paid electronically, there will always be a need for some check printing. In addition to normal check printing, the Controller's Office has received unexpected requests from other agencies unrelated to the COVID pandemic to print potentially thousands of checks for special projects in the upcoming biennium. These agencies will need to fund additional printers for the Controller's Office, but we will still be using our regular printers to be printing those checks also. These projects will most likely burn out the current printers. Examples of some of the agencies that have asked for assistance is the Department of Motor Vehicles and the Department of Taxation. I would be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you very much. I think my first question is, why was this not included in your budget under other items or the technical items that we do in every budget?
For the record, this is Lori Hoover. I apologize. I am very new at this process, and this was a decision with the GFO and our budget. I will have to go back to my budget officer to answer that question.
That's fine. It's just curious. It may have just been something that was overlooked, and this is the way you're addressing it rather than through a budget amendment. So, Ms. Kaufman, are you aware of the reason why this would be here and not actually in the budget? Do you have any information?
Madam Chair, the one-time appropriations were provided by the Governor's Finance Office to be funded in fiscal year 2021 as that funding was available in 2021 as opposed to fiscal year 2022 or 2023. And so that's what the Governor's Office direction was to the state agencies.
Okay, so as we move forward, Ms. Kaufman, I can imagine we're going to see a lot of these sorts of things, because rather than put it in a future budget where the money is tighter, we'd like to get these things taken care of in this particular fiscal year when there are still some dollars available. Am I correct?
Madam Chair, that is correct.
Okay, good. Just wanted to make sure that we got that on the record. So with that, Ms. Peters, did you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was curious about the decision to purchase printers, which is what I assume this is requesting rather than leasing printers. And then what additional maintenance costs would we be incurring if we purchase these printers? Is that included in your base budget or in another place, since this is the one-time allocation?
Thank you for the question. Again, for the record, this is Lori Hoover with the Controller's Office. I believe, again, I'll have to verify why we have not looked at leasing in the past, but most of these being very specific to printing checks, I don't believe that a lot of these are leased. They are usually, the printers are usually purchased. We included in this appropriation amount is the annual warranty for these two printers, and that will cover a majority of the maintenance. We also do need to purchase maintenance kits periodically, and those have always been in our base budget for the current printers and will stay for the new printers.
Thank you.
And thank you, Ms. Peters, for the question. Ms. Gorlow, did you have a question?
Thank you, Chair Carlton. Yes, I had a quick question, and Assemblywoman Peters did catch some of it on why it wasn't being leased. Did I hear you correctly that this is for two printers?
That is, for the record, Lori Hoover, yes, that's correct.
Thank you. And just a quick follow-up for my own curiosity, what does this printer look like? I'm kind of picturing my little desktop printer. For one printer being $9,000, I'm just kind of curious what that kind of a printer looks like.
For the record, Lori Hoover, it actually looks very similar. The reason why it is so expensive, it's called the Micker Secure Printer because it prints the Micker font on your checks. So when you receive a check and you have your bank account and routing number on printed on the bottom of those checks, it's actually printed in a very specific ink, and that way it can be run through the banking system quickly and it reads it automatically, and there's some securities behind it. So the printer itself looks like one that you would have on your desk, but the pieces and what it's doing is much more secure, and so there's the cost that comes with it.
Thank you so much. And that might also explain why it can't be leased, also that it has to be purchased. That'd be my guess, but thank you so much.
Okay, and other questions from other committee members? It's hard to keep up on the outside chat, so someone else had a question? Ms. Monroe Moreno, was that you?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. With the two printers, where exactly will they be located?
For the record, Lori Hoover. They will be located in the basement of the Capitol, which is where we perform any non-disaster recovery printing for the state.
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions from other committee members at this time? Not seeing anyone, please speak up if I'm not seeing you. I think we're good. So with that, since this is a bill hearing, we will go ahead and open it up for support, opposition, and neutral. So I will go to broadcast services. So broadcast services, I would like to open it up for AB 455 for support, opposition, and neutral. Do we have anyone on the line for support?
Chair, the testimony line is open and working. However, we have no callers to testify in support of AB 455 at this time.
And no one to testify in opposition?
Chair, we also have no one to testify in opposition to AB 455.
And in neutral, please.
Chair, there is also no one in neutral to testify on AB 455.
Thank you very much. I know it seems a little bit odd, but we need to verify that for the record. So thank you very much. So Ms. Hoover, did you have any final comments?
No, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hoover, for answering our questions. We appreciate that. So with that, I will close the hearing on Assembly Bill 455, and we will open up the hearing on Assembly Bill 456. And I believe do I have Ms. Adams available for 456? Is that correct?
Good evening, Chair Carlton. This is Jeff Haig, Deputy Administrator with Aging and Disability Services.
Thank you, Mr. Haig. Please proceed.
Thank you, ma'am, for the opportunity to present on AB 456. Good evening to you and the committee. AB 456 requests an appropriation of $85,750 for a asphalt maintenance, repair, and striping project at the Desert Regional Center here in Las Vegas. It's also important to note that this is the primary parking lot for the Desert Regional Center, as well as our 24-hour care facility that services folks with disabilities, many of which are mobility challenged, and this asphalt repair will help address those problems as well. So that is this bill, and with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Haig. So with that, committee members, we know the purpose of why the bill is here, so that it's an appropriation within this particular fiscal year. Do you have any questions on, we don't get to talk about parking lots much outside of CIP. So does anyone have any questions? Mr. Haig, approximately how large is this parking lot?
Chair Carlton, I don't know specifically as far as the number of spaces. It's several dozen parking spaces right there at the corner of Jones when you turn in at 1391 there. And again, it is the primary parking lot for the facility, but I could get an exact number of spaces for you and follow up with your staff.
And thank you. I can picture it. I am familiar with the property, so I know exactly what you're talking about. So thank you very much. So committee members, are there any questions on this particular item?
Madam Chair.
Assemblywoman Titus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question along the same lines as the previous questions that have been asked about why this is here and not in like the appropriations or just the general the budget, as opposed to in a separate bill. And maybe just for clarity, did this come up after the budget was submitted, or is it also similar to the previous questions in that it wasn't able to be approved for the 22-23 session and or time, and so now it's being brought to approve in the 2021?
Ms. Kaufman, would you go ahead and address that again? I know you went over it with the first bill, but please go ahead and put it on the record again.
Certainly, Madam Chair. Yes, that is my understanding. I believe the governor's finance office they have what's called a 2 times rule. And so when agencies are building their budgets, anything that's above and beyond 2 times the amount of general fund appropriations that are for what we call the work program year is something that they provide for a special consideration. And so when the governor's finance office and the governor were building their budget, it was my understanding that they built it with this initial set of funding, and then they were able to determine what revenues they had in fiscal year 2021 that they could utilize for one-time funding. And so that was my understanding of how many of these one-time appropriations were placed into the 2021 fiscal year to be funded at this point in time, is because they were trying to determine where best to fund them.
And follow up on that, Madam Chair?
Yes, Dr. Titus.
And thank you. So there's a bunch, so I won't ask this question again for all the rest of these, but so we've determined that or the governor's office has determined that we have this money in our general fund, so that as we total all of these up, these monies are available, or as Madam Chair has mentioned in the past, will they be put into a parking lot to make sure we have these funds? Just for some clarity there.
Madam Chair, through you to Assemblywoman Titus. So the process and how money bills are actually approved and moved out of Ways and Means is the K-12 funding bill has to be approved first in both houses. And you will see that one house can appropriate and can approve certain bills, and then it gets passed over to the other house. And so while the Assembly Ways and Means can hear these bills, and once we get closer to the end of session, can start passing these out, the other house has to wait until they approve that before the K-12 funding bill can be approved.
And thank you for that clarity. I think it's just the first time we're hearing all these bills, appropriations, and there's several of them on tonight. So thank you for that clarity again. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the question.
You're welcome. So with that, committee members, are there any questions in relationship to AB 456? Seeing none. So with that, we will go ahead and go to broadcast services and go through our support, opposition, and neutral. So broadcast services, do we have anyone in support of AB 456?
Chair, this is broadcast. The line is open and working. However, we have no callers in support of AB 456 at this time.
Okay, and broadcast services, do we have anyone in opposition?
Chair, at this time, we have no callers in opposition to 456 at this time.
And do we have anyone in neutral?
Chair, the line is open and working. However, we have no callers to speak in neutral on AB 456.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hague, did you have any closing comments?
No, Chair Carlton, just thank you for the opportunity to present this bill in your consideration, the committee's consideration. We too appreciate the uniqueness of a parking project, but look forward to hopefully an approved one. So thank you.
No, we appreciate it, Mr. Hague, and I look at it as jobs. You're going to put some people to work fixing your parking lot. So thank you very much. We will close the hearing on AB 456, and we will open up the hearing on AB 457. And I believe, if I'm checking my list correctly, do I have our State Forester Casey Casey available?
Yes, I'm here.
Good evening, Ms. Casey Casey. Would you like to give us a brief overview of Assembly Bill 457, please?
Yes. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Casey Casey, State Forester Fire Warden for the Nevada Division of Forestry. Thank you for having me here today to provide testimony on Assembly Bill 457. This bill requests an appropriation of the State General Fund to the Nevada Division of Forestry in the amount of $666,590 for deferred maintenance projects. This request would fund the 50 highest priority deferred maintenance projects that deal with life safety and/or ADA compliance in NDF's 3 regional headquarter facilities, 2 interagency dispatch centers, helicopter hangar, and maintenance shops. The agency has a backlog of deferred maintenance beyond this request of 102 additional projects, adding over $1.9 million additional dollars. Due to the age and condition of most of our facilities, prioritized projects are often replaced with immediate need emergency repairs, further delaying our deferred maintenance needs. I wanted to put on the record that if the capital improvement project CO1 for NDF's Elko Mechanic Shop is approved, there are 6 duplicated projects on this list that will drop off for a total of $28,700, taking the total request for AB 457 to $637,890. Thank you for your consideration of Assembly Bill 457, and I would be happy to take any questions.
And Ms. Casey, could you repeat the CIP number again, please, so that I can make a note of that?
Yeah, if CO1 is approved, it's $28,700.
I'm sorry, the capital improvement project number?
CO1.
CO1, okay, I'm sorry, it broke up a second there. Okay, thank you, appreciate that. So committee members, with that, are there any questions for our state forester, Ms. Casey?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Roberts.
So this is a fairly high dollar amount, and I know we asked why it wouldn't be in their normal budget, but why wouldn't it be in the CIP? You can bond that. We're taking general fund dollars here. Just curious why we're doing it this way.
Ms. Casey, go ahead.
Okay, again, for the record, Casey, State Forester. This is how we were instructed to put it in. We put the deferred maintenance in our budgets. And so I think historically, if I remember correctly, it has gone through a one-shot appropriation for us.
Okay, thank you.
And typically, Mr. Roberts, we wouldn't bond on maintenance type issues. They don't have the longevity for a bond. You don't repair your air conditioner. You've heard this before on your mortgage, so you do your deferred maintenance in a different way. You don't want to use up bonding capacity on just the fixes that you need to do. So it's kind of been the general philosophy. It doesn't hold true every single time. So don't hold us to it, because there will be variations on that as we move forward.
Right, Madam Chair. I just saw in the CIP projects we were upgrading air conditioning and chilling units and things like that. Maybe I'm just confused. So thank you.
And there are some of those this particular year because they're needed. But it just depends on how high on the priority list that they go as far as the CIP budget goes.
Thank you for the question.
You're welcome. Committee members, any other questions of Ms. Casey? Not seeing any. Okay, with that, I believe we can go ahead and go to support, opposition, and neutral. So I'll go back to our wonderful broadcast services and go through that with them again. So broadcast services, do we have anyone in support of AB 457?
Chair, the testimony line is open and working. However, we have no callers to testify in support of AB 457.
And any callers in opposition?
Chair, we do not have any callers in opposition for AB 457.
And any in neutral?
We do not have any callers to testify neutrally on AB 457.
Thank you very much, Broadcast Services, for helping us create a very clear record. We appreciate that. So with that, Ms. Casey, do you have any closing comments?
No, just thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you very much for being here. Welcome to Ways and Means in the evening. So with that, I will close the hearing on Assembly Bill 457, and we will move on to Assembly Bill 458. And I believe do I have Mr. or Ms. Figueroa?
I will be presenting with the PowerPoint, but Sharath Shamra, the Administrator of Real Estate, he will be doing the actual presentation.
Okay, so if we could go ahead and have the presentation, and if we could be brief on the PowerPoint, please, that would be helpful. Thank you. Go ahead and proceed.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Sharath Chandra, Administrator for the Real Estate Division. With me also, you heard Lisa Figueroa, who is Business and Industry's Chief Financial Officer, is also available. We're here for AB 458 that appropriates funds for the Real Estate Division for an upgrade. It's licensing software and replacement of some hardware and some server hardware. I have a very short presentation for most of the members of this committee are very familiar with real estate, but I thought it was just a quick overview. So with your indulgence, I'll just go through the slides very quickly. The first slide really shows the divisions, the division from its licensing section. We license real estate licensees, builders, developers, timeshares, appraisers, energy auditors. That's the kind of the segment of folks that we oversee. On the right there, you'll see the number of licensees, permit holders, folks we register, 41,000 and change. And also a little snippet of the complaints, cases, walk-ins, call-ins that the division receives. This is just really real estate. We've highlighted, but we can add on all the other segments there, but this gives you an overview of that. And at the bottom there, you'll see the Real Estate Commission, which is the 5-member body that's responsible for discipline, regulation, and education. And then we also have a commission for appraisers. And again, it's another 5-member body. The next slide is an overview of the Ombudsman's office. Lisa can get it up. Perfect. And again, this is again a quick overview. We've got, again, 26,549 new units added. Again, on the chart on the left there, you'll see the number of HOAs. It's been climbing steadily. Right now, we have 3,400 and change. And also the number of units go up with those. So we're looking at close to 570,000 units. And on the right there, just the areas that the Ombudsman's office focuses on. And then we also have a 7-member commission that regulates the office, does discipline, regulation, and advisory capacity. The next slide is really the meat of why we're here. And this is the technology piece. Again, really our database or the licensing infrastructure that we have focuses on compliance, licensing, education, discipline, payment processing, accounting, and administrative functions. So on the left there, just quickly summarize our current situation. Again, the database is 14 plus years old. When this was bought, it was based, and now it's based on an older, outdated technology. And again, just because it is IT, there've been a lot of mergers and acquisitions in that area. And so our vendor has kind of been sold and merged a couple of times over. And what we really want to focus on is the vision for the future and some of the things that kind of guiding principles for us of how we want our software to be. And again, the philosophy again is it is infrastructure, needs updates, maintenance, and a continuity of funding. And so that is just a quick overview of the technology challenges. And the last slide is really to kind of give the committee an idea of our staffing levels too. Again, we started off, I want to say somewhere in 2005 with 36 EFTs. We currently have 26 and a half. And so, and for folks in the committee, the Carson City office does not have a licensing center. Everything is done here in Southern Nevada. And also we have a half a position up there for investigations for licensing. So just that kind of encapsulates our staffing levels and what we do here at the Real Estate Division. And with that, that is my quick brief presentation. Hopefully I captured some of the questions the members may have. If not, we're available. Thank you.
And thank you very much. So how old is the current system that you have?
So I believe it was appropriated in 2003, 2005. So I'd probably say another year or two before implementation. So close to 14 years.
Okay, just curious. And was this, I don't remember this request being made last session, was it?
Great question, Madam Chair. I think we wanted to do it. I believe originally we were envisioning something that we could do with another B&I industry and try to partner with them because they were also doing the licensing. But somewhere in the mix, things got shuffled around and we never actually put in a tin specifically for real estate. So this time we decided to just put a tin in and follow the process, and that's why we're here.
Alrighty, and it's my understanding that the real estate division goes basically off of fees. So if you were to spread this across your fee base, what was that a conversation, or I want to understand why we're not doing this. If when other boards and other commissions need to upgrade, they have to come back, talk to us, ask to increase their fees so that they can pay for their own upgrades. But here we're asking for the state to pay for this upgrade. So how are you different as far as a fee-based agency and how you operate? I just want to make sure that you get that on the record.
Thank you for that, Madam Chair. Again, the division is one of those few agencies that is still general funded. We are dependent on the general fund for an appropriation to operate, though we generate twice as much as what we budgeted for our expenditures. So that is a unique feature of the real estate division.
So how much have you generated?
So, I have records going back from 2005, but approximately, to just put a quick number to it, for every $2
we just need to do this biennium. We don't need to go back a decade or so. We just need to talk about this biennium.
So Lisa's on the line, so she can chime in too, but I believe close to 7 million in revenues and then about 3,800 in expenditures. But again, very specifically, I'll have to look at a spreadsheet.
So is this an enterprise fund?
No, this is Sharat Chandra, administrator for the real estate division. No, the real estate division is just a straight general fund.
Okay.
For its expenses.
And thank you for putting all this on the record so that everyone understands. I just want to make sure that we get all the information out there for those that are new to this process. It's good to have all these questions asked and answered on the record. So I do appreciate that. So do I have questions from committee members? Ms. Peters?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am wondering about whether you have selected a vendor, and it sounds like you have since you've gone through the TIN process, or at least a selection of vendors that you anticipate sending an RFP to. Can you talk a little bit about that? And if that is the case, you have some potential vendors in mind, how does our state compare in size to those? And the reason I'm asking is because sometimes we are not large enough to be really competitive as in our needs as other entities are who use these services. So I'm just curious how you guys are considering that.
Thank you for the question, Assemblywoman. Sharat Chandra, administrator for the real estate division. So to answer the first part of your question, right now the TIN is just a process for IT to vet the project and ensure that we've kind of explored all the scope of the work. The RFP process is something that we'd have to go through to actually get quotes from vendors. typically, this industry will probably have four vendors at the most that actively participate in these licensing software. So we anticipate seeing 3 to 4 people put in, including the current vendor that we use. But nothing has been done yet. So this is just our guesstimate, for lack of a better word, done 2 years ago, prior to the pandemic, and we're hoping to go out and do an RFP. Though the bones of the RFP are ready, we'd still have to go out and see what's out there. The second question, we are relatively small, but the licensing functionality is similar to most states. So I think vendors that put in here already have an infrastructure. And so for them, it makes it easier when they have more volume because they're already doing all the work or the framework's already there. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I will be curious to see how this flushes out. And Madam Chair, I have one more question just based on the amount
Go ahead.
asked for. Does this also cover your costs, your division costs for developing that RFP and going through that purchasing process, or is this just allocated to the purchase of this software?
Sharad Chandra, Administrator for the Real Estate Division. Thank you again for that question. So this is just for what we estimate is going to cost us to procure something like this. It does not include all the work. I mean, that is something that we have to internally do. I mean, ideally, we would assign a project manager, but we'd have to look internally to my staff, and maybe BNI has an IT professional there that can help us along the way. But really, this is purely just to procure the front end. And the important piece of this is a one-shot appropriation, but for us, we've got to maintain this. We've got to probably pay for hosting, cloud storage. And those are all going to be part of an ongoing cost. And I think this one factors that in for the 2-year biennium, but then my understanding is the governor's office may have to do this on a biennial basis. But to answer your question, this is just the cost this is only what it's going to cost us to get the bid.
Thank you for that clarification.
Okay. So with that, committee members, are there any other questions at this time?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Roberts.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just curious as to, if you don't get this appropriation, what does it do to your operations in the next couple years?
Thank you, Assemblyman Roberts. Sharad Chandra, Administrator for the Real Estate Division. The pandemic has really exposed some of our deficiencies, for lack of a better word, and I think technology is one of the biggest things. I think not being able to offer those services digitally it's pretty bad. And if you think about how licensing works, and you don't have a Carson City office, you have a Las Vegas office where doors are open, folks come in here, but everything else comes through the mail. And seeing the challenges at USPS, that has been challenging. There's always a delay. Things get lost in the mail. And also when the building closes, we had to physically send staff in here in the middle of the pandemic and stack up mail and then come in and work on the mail because everything comes in through the mail. So it's been very challenging. I don't see it getting any better. So this is something that needs to get done. It's just seems like this is, a good time to do it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Any other questions from any of the committee members at this time? Okay, I don't believe I see any. And Mr. Chandra, to sort of the conversation that evolved around contributing to the general fund, but only pulling a certain amount down. A number of industries that happens to. That's why it goes to the general fund, and then we have a budget and a legislatively approved budget and decide how we're going to distribute those general fund dollars. If everybody just got back the money that they put in, there wouldn't be a whole lot of decisions for us to make. We could probably do it in about 30 days and go back home. So that's kind of how we weigh things out and make sure that the different agencies do get the resources that they need. And that's why we ask the questions, so that we can make sure that we understand the full picture of what's going on within the agency. So thank you very much for walking us through and providing us with the numbers and what the division has been doing through the pandemic. We do appreciate that. So now I believe we can go ahead and open up the phone line. So with that, broadcast services, if you could let me know, do we have anyone in support of AB 458?
Chair, this is Michael from Broadcast. The testimony line is open and working. However, we have no callers in support of AB 458 at this time.
And do we have any callers in opposition, please?
Chair, there are no callers in opposition to AB 458 at this time.
And in neutral, please.
There are no callers in neutral to testify on AB 458 at this time.
Thank you very much, broadcast services. So with that, Mr. Chandra, did you have any closing remarks?
Madam Chair, I just wanted to thank you and the committee for the pointed questions and the opportunity to appear before you. We appreciate it. Thank you.
And thank you for being here this evening. We want to make sure we get all of our questions answered now, because when it comes time to take action on any of those bills, we're not going to have time to dig deep. We want to be able to get all the information that we need on it right now. So thank you very much for being here this evening. We appreciate it. So with that, committee members, that takes care of the bills that we had scheduled. So you can now see how many bills Ways and Means can actually do in an evening. So when you see a very long agenda in the future, you don't have to worry about packing your jammies or a sleeping bag. We will get it done. Okay. So with that, I believe we will go to public comment. That is the last thing on our agenda for this evening. So broadcast services, could you open us up for public comment, please?
Chair, the public comment line is open and working. However, we have no callers at this time.
Well, thank you very much, broadcast services, for spending your evening with Ways and Means. Thank you, committee members. We will see you all tomorrow. We are adjourned.